Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is Two Back or Not to Back, where we're going to go through a variety of crowdfunding campaigns, talking about the games, the pledge levels, should you get them, all of that and more. And if you're like, hey, wait a second, it's not Monday, you're not wrong. Congratulations, it is indeed not Monday. In fact, if you're watching this the day it went up, it's Wednesday right now. Two Back or Not to Back is a series that usually goes up every single Monday. If you haven't tracked that yet, I guess that's your cue. It's usually every single Monday. This is the first time I think that it's not been on a Monday since I first started the series, and it wasn't yet locked into Mondays. But unfortunately, between moving, travel, and just, jobs and life and everything, it's been hard to keep up. I actually owe you a Blood gameplay and review. Will be coming out soon. I'm almost done on those. We have Odalin, that will be coming out for you shortly as well, a review on Odalin. So I'm behind on a few things, and that included this week Two Back and Not to Back, as I had just come back from Origins. Anyways, that's a whole lot of stuff to get you briefly caught up on all the ways I'm behind currently. I'm usually on top of things, but this week has not been one of those weeks. But let's go ahead and start off our Two Back and Not to Back, as usually starting off with Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now is a segment where we take a look at a currently available game, and in this case we're taking a look at Robinson Crusoe Adventures of the Cursed Island Collector's Edition over on Game Nerds. For $70, you can get the Collector's Edition of this game, where people who backed it on crowdfunding had to possibly wait like 2.5 years to get their hands on the game, or maybe more. I'd have to check exactly how late this one was. But as we're about to dive into a whole bunch of crowdfunding campaigns, this is your regular reminder that sometimes you can get great games available now. Sometimes the FOMO is real, and you don't have to go ahead and get that game on crowdfunding. You can wait down the road and see if you can get your hands on it then instead. In any case, with that, we're going to go ahead and start off with, not quite yet, we have one more thing. Actually, we have a giveaway over here. Odalin is doing a giveaway currently over here. You can go ahead and check out their Gleam giveaway to get a whole bunch of gigantic dungeon crawlers, from Oathsworn to Daenerys to Frosthaven, Isofaron Guard, and more. You can go ahead and win all of those games if you go ahead and enter this giveaway. You have 46 days left to go, so no major rush in terms of, entering and all that stuff. But you can go ahead and do a bunch of things. You can subscribe to the newsletter, follow the campaign on GameFound, although I don't know if that will still work. I guess that probably still would work. But anyways, as you do that, you'll unlock more options for more entries. You can check out that giveaway. I'll have it linked down below. And with that, let's go ahead and start with the first campaign, which I'm just briefly going to kind of mention. I'm not really going to go over it, but this is Dark Blood by Meeple Pug. Unfortunately, this campaign is already over, so I'm not fully going to go into it, but I missed this one, basically. I didn't do a Two Back or Not to Back last week, and between that and missing being late on this one, this ended a day ago. So unfortunately, I can I still go through the campaign. You will likely have a chance to late back it once they open up those late pledges, but it did fairly well. 2,300 backers, 323,000 euro raised. Overall, it did fairly well. I'm just kind of mentioning it so you can put it on your radar, follow the campaign, all of that, if you did miss the campaign. In general, I try to cover all the campaigns that are of interest, or at least as many as possible, and because I didn't get a chance to cover this, I'm letting you know it exists now, but we won't be going into it now since it's not an active campaign. I'll also note, before we dive into the rest of the campaigns, that there are like 5 or 6 campaigns that are active that are not being covered in this Two Back Not to Back. I'm going to go ahead and cover those next week, or Monday if I'm actually on time this week, but we'll hopefully go ahead and cover some of those. So if you see a few missing campaigns, I'd have to check. I know there's There's a bunch of, there's Tsukiyumi, there's a few active campaigns that I don't have coverage on right now, but you can go ahead and check those out on Monday's video as well. With that, we're going to go ahead and start off with Wastelandia, a co-op and solo boss battler. Wastelandia over here, $33,000 raised, 478 backers, 59 hours to go, so this is running into the last hours of the campaign. This is exactly what it sounds like, a solo and co-op boss battler, I believe not really Yahtzee, but kind of like dice throwing style, where you're going to be rolling dice, placing those dice on your abilities to go ahead and take down the boss in a series of, I believe it's 4 different adventures, 4 leaked adventures, where you're going to be leveling up as you go through it. So you got a little bit starting off easy, you have a chance to go ahead and kill whatever you need to kill, but then you have to start leveling up your characters as you go in order to take down the bosses as they get more and more difficult. The art, very retro, not particularly my style. I think it's good art, just not I don't like that. I guess, I don't know, it's not personally my style, but the actual gameplay itself does very much pull me in. Gameplay looks very satisfying. Again, basically it's going to be, explosive combos, rolling dice, boss battling, taking down enemies, and powering up in between. That very much does seem like my jam as far as the gameplay aspect of it, so looking good. From the people who played it, there does seem to be overall positive coverage in this one. That's going to be Wastelandia. For the pledge levels, we have $47 for the Essential Edition, $69 for the Deluxe Edition, which is going to give you Rebel Dice, upgraded dual layout boards, wooden tokens, dials, insert organizers, and box sleeves on top of the regular game. And then you have the absolutely everything for $94, which includes a Neo Fiend dice tray 4-pack upgrade as well. So it's 4 dice trays to go ahead and, give you those extra things as well. And then I believe believe they have extra dice. I think they had like really, oh, here we go. The Ultimate Collector's Edition had incredibly cool dice over here. Let me go ahead and scroll down and show you the dice over here because I do think they are very cool. So if we scroll down, we have the regular Ultimate, over here, the Ultimate Collector's components, the Wasteland Caps dice. 7 Wasteland Caps dice. These look very cool overall. I think there were some basic less cool, but still, here we go. Here are the Wasteland Rebel dice in the deluxe fight components that they do come painted, but these look very cool, but these do look ultra super cool, but you are certainly paying for that premium. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value, all of that. Overall, I don't think so. This one, the biggest issue right now is that while the game does look good, it hasn't pulled that mass appeal. Coming with 478 backers in the last hours of the campaign, this means it just hasn't pulled in enough people who are interested in backing it at the current pricing, and that usually does translate over to retail as well. So I do think this is going to be one that's going to be slightly harder to get your hands on with only that many copies out in the wild. But as far as one that will hold its value, I think it's less likely to hold its value. But if you do want to lock in and guarantee, especially some of that premium stuff, now would be the time to go ahead and back it. Moving on, we have Okinawa, the last battle of World War II, the solo game of the month from Barrett Publishing. $31,000 raised, 1,300 backers, $5,000 goal, 1 day left to go. Again, another one with 1 day left over here. Okinawa is going to be a solo game from the Barrett Publishing solo game of the month club over here. We're going to be rolling dice and activating various abilities while trying to power up those cards as well as you go through this one. For the pledge levels in this one, you're going to have $24 for the basic pledge as well as the $5 print and play. This solo game of the month generally does have a print and play option as well, and shipping is usually running you around $5 or $6 depending on where you're looking at. So overall, fairly affordable on this one. As far as should you back, should you not, same thing I usually say on the solo game of the month, which is in general these games, I think that they do have what they do have going for them is that they are in theory are only available doing these crowdfunding campaigns and not after, and that does mean the ones that become particularly popular, they're going to be ones that are going to be harder to track down and will hold the value. I think in general, on average, this is a slightly more expensive as far as solo games of the month. I mean, the most comparable thing you're going to be comparing this to is Button Shy, which are cheaper and more affordable, and those do have ongoing availability. So these ones are kind of, I think that if you do want to get all the games in the series, locking in crowdfunding is going to be the simplest way to guarantee it. But as far as holding its value, usually in terms of cheaper, less expensive games, usually on crowdfunding, are usually not as worth backing when it comes to holding their value. Moving on, we have 2GM Tactics, France, and Total War. $31,500 raised, 511 backers, 53 hours to go. Another one wrapping down to the final days over here. This one's going to basically be giving you more content and as well as the opportunity to get the base game for Total War. This game has been out since, I want to say, 2015 is when it originally came out, and they've had several expansions since then. And overall, you can get the 2 new expansions over here, $17 for the Total War expansion, which will come with the campaign book, or 17 euro for the France expansion, which again will come with the campaign rulebook. And then alternatively, 34 euro, which will give you both expansions and the campaign rulebook. And then from there, you can get the 2GM Tactics Deluxe for 49 euro, as well as everything for 79 euro if you want to get all of that. And this basically is a war game where you're going to be building out your decks and then simulating combat over here on this battlefield. But overall, if you look at the original game, as far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, overall you can find this game as well as a bunch of expansions for a more reasonable price point. Meaning right now, on the crowdfunding campaign, they are giving you a deal, so to speak. If we can scroll down over here, you can see over here 34 euro instead of 50 euro on those options, which is great, except the problem is shipping is going to run that additional 10 euro for you over there. 10 euro for 2 expansions, bringing you to 44 euro down from 50 euro, which in general, if you track MSRP conversations over here on this channel, and we do the 2 back and not to back, usually when you have a small discount on MSRP, but that discount is more than offset by the shipping cost, you're usually not looking at a savings at all, especially when you compare it to online retail. So depending on where you can get access to these games, I don't think there's much of a savings going on here. And then as far as the secondhand market, in general, these games have not done great on the secondhand market. You can usually find a whole bundle of everything for significantly less than the all-in on this campaign. So if you particularly want the new stuff, sure, by all means go ahead and back it. But if you're looking for whether it makes sense to get it, or alternatively whether it'll hold its value, I think a little less so on this campaign. Moving on, we have Artefacts. Artefacts is going to be $52,000 raised, 346 backers, 5 days to go, and Artefacts is a build your artifact and prove its worth in the arena. This is one where I won't be able to get into details on the gameplay. It is a heavy Euro game with like 18 different modules to mix up the gameplay mechanics, and it's kind of almost an attacking Euro game. It's a very, well, I don't even know if that's the right way to explain it. You're basically building your artifact, but your artifact can go head to head with other players, so there's a degree of building your own engine while also being mindful of how it affects others in the game, with tons of modular gameplay, and it's a very, very ambitious game. Previously tried funding last time, did not succeed. They're back and they are funded, which I'm happy for them because they said it's otherwise the last time they're going at the game. But the problem is the Artifacts all-in gameplay is going to run you 119 euro, around $130 for the game. That's before shipping. We have 158 euro for the all-in plus 28 minis, and €197 for the all-in plus 53 minis. So if you want those gameplay upgrades, it's going to cost you even more over there. Shipping is going to run you around €30 over here for the base game alone. So again, that €119 base game is going to be €150, looking around $170, $180 for this game, which I think is part of the reason why it's struggling. In general, regardless of whether it's the best price they can offer, regardless of whether, and they talk about how like they offer so much gameplay for a reasonable price point, it's basically a game plus who knows how many expansions, all of that could be true, but in terms of the general visuals of it, if your entry price point for a Euro game is running you around €200 or $200, less than like $180, $190 for someone to get your hands in it, that's not putting it in an affordable price, it's not putting it in an affordable place. So this very much comes across as a passion project, one that is, I'm glad it funded, I'm glad he found his audience, it looks very ambitious, it is well rated from those who have had access to it, but at the end of the day, as far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, I think the fact that the 346 backers, even on the second campaign, is partially because of the fact that it is a very, very expensive game. And so I am skeptical, as ambitious and cool as the project seems, I am skeptical this one will hold this value. Moving on, we have Ada's Dream coming to you from Alley Cat Games. 1,867 backers, $139,000 raised, 7 days to go. Ada's Dream is going to be another medium weight Euro from Alley Cat Games deluxe strategy line or whatever it is. They have a term for their heavier strategy line, and this is going to be in that line. And it's going to be a dice placement game with a dice rondelle where you're working with Ada Lovelace to build the first mechanical computer. So this one's going to be well, a few things to go over here, but you're going to have a bunch of you're going to have a dice placement with a rondelle game over here. The pledge levels are going to be €45 for the retail edition, €54 for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, and €79 if you want to go ahead and get the Neofreed mats and 30 custom metal coins on top of all of that. And I think that's where it caps up before you get to the group pledges. In this, you're going to be mimicking creating that physical machine from Lovelace, Lovelace and Babbage is their machine, that their whatever digital machine or whatnot, and you're going to be simulating that through the dice drafting and the rondelle. There's going to be a bunch of action areas as you try to manage which dice get pushed off the rondelle. As the dice move around, they're going to be bumping other dice off the rondelle as you try to go ahead and build your partners and upgrade your actions to try to most efficiently score points in this game. For the pledge levels over here, before you get the pledge levels, there's also going to be Kickstarter exclusive content over here. If we can scroll down and see where we are. Here we go. We have exclusive to Kickstarter, the Great Exhibition expansion, as well as the deluxe components for the game, and all unlock stretch goals as they continue to unlock. Which brings us to the whole should you back or should you not will hold its value. In general, Alley Cat games have done fine on the secondhand market. These particular games, they usually have the Kickstarter exclusive content, which does help them, but they've usually done only fine. Meaning, in general, I'd say for these games, you're looking at possibly like losing your shipping or whatnot, but you're not looking at getting your full amount back. You're looking at getting most of it back if you do back it and find that it's not a game for you. Meaning your options basically are getting it at retail without the Kickstarter exclusive content, or getting it, well, now on the crowdfunding campaign, or getting on the secondhand market later, where there usually is the opportunity to do so, but at, again, small savings on the price point for a used copy, so it kind of goes into a little bit a little bit either way, whichever one you want, depending on what you prefer, whether you prefer a new retail copy with a slight more premium on it, or whether you're fine, getting it a slightly cheaper on the secondhand market. That's going to determine what makes the most sense for you on this one. Moving on over here, we have Skytear Horde campaigns, a new campaign, well, called campaigns from Skytear Games. €199,000 raised, 1,700 backers, 8 days left to go. This is the third campaign in the Skytear Horde line of, well, campaigns. Skytear Horde is a solo or cooperative card combat game which you're going to be going against various enemies while figuring out which deck, which factions you're going to be utilizing. And they had the original game, but then they also had Skytear Horde, what did they call it? What was the last one called? I don't remember. They had Skytear Horde, whatever the last one was, and now they have Skytear Horde campaigns. All adding more and new content to the game, more variety in terms of the decks, more variety in terms of the enemies, and in the case of Skytear Horde campaigns, they're also adding a campaign mode where I believe across 4 rounds, I think it's across 4 games, you're going to go through a sequence of games, starting off a little less powerful than you would in a typical Skytear game, but also dealing with a slightly lesser enemy. You just have to reach the portal and that's it. No real bosses to deal with, but that's going to escalate and upgrade as you go through the campaign. Now I should note the new campaign option, and all of these are standalone by the way, all of them are, you can get each one on its own, but the new campaigns option for the game is not mandatory. You do not have to play in a campaign. Most of the content, I think they say 95% of the content is, well, not campaign exclusive or not, it's general content, but they do have the campaign option, which is mostly fine. I do think that campaign label is going to hurt them on the general, I mean, if you call your game Skytear Horde campaigns and it's part of the Skytear line, I think a lot of people are going to automatically assume that it it is a campaign. That is, it's giving you that kind of gameplay. And I think you're fighting a marketing battle to try to convince people that this is not a campaign-only expansion. It's an expansion and standalone that's going to also give you campaign options. So I think that's kind of fighting an uphill battle, but it is what it is. But at least those of you watching now will hopefully know that it's not exclusively a campaign. But we have Skytear Horde, Skytear Horde Monoliths, and Skytear Horde campaigns. 3 standalone but combinable chapters. So again, these aren't even expansions, they're all standalone, and they all will fit into the deluxe box. If you got the deluxe box from the last campaign for Monoliths, then campaigns will fit into that. So you have complete access to everything in that box. As far as the pledge levels, well, first of all, as far as content, you're getting more and more things over here. You're getting more alliance decks, more castles, more horde decks, more outsiders, portal players, minions, all these various things over here. Tons of content, nats, all that stuff. A lot of gameplay between the 3 systems, although again, you can get any one of the systems and call it a day. You do not need all 3. Over here we have the campaign, a bit of a brief overview of what the campaign is. 97% of the new cards are playable outside of campaigns. You can play through a sequence of campaigns. I think it was 4 missions. Yeah, 4 connected games in which the health of the castle is carried over. You start with a weak 20 card deck, but you're going to be building it up as you go through, that escalating power aspect. So if you like Skytear Horde, but you want more of a progression to that system, then Skytear Horde campaigns is, well, attempting to give you that, but as one of the gameplay options. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have the gameplay all-in for $49.99. We have the returning players deluxe for $69.99. This gives you all the deluxe stuff, as well as, well, if you're coming at it already being a returning player effectively. We have the new players deluxe for $189.99, giving you basically everything that you might want as a new player. New collectors $285, which is, when I said everything, I meant everything except for all the stuff that's going to be also in the new collectors over here, and then retailer for, well, whatever. And then from there, you also have individual add-ons for being able to choose what sleeves or decks or promos or all those things you might want in the game. That's basically the game over here. Tons of content over here. You can get as much or as little as you want. As far as, well, you can check out my own content on the game. I generally enjoy the Skytear universe quite a bit. I have gameplay as well as review coverage of the game. But as far as should you back or should you not will hold its value, Skytear Horde is a bit of a tough one. If you look at the original campaign definitely did a good job holding its value. But then follow up from there, the Monoliths over there, I don't think has done quite as good of a job, which can happen sometimes when you have expansion content. You start figuring out who wants that expansion content or mixing and match, and somebody's buying Monoliths so they want the original Horde, and all those things to figure out. It's still doing decently as far as holding its value, but it's one that, especially because there also are cheaper retail options if you don't need all the stuff, so this is one where you can get your hands on a retail, you can get your hands on secondhand copies, so I think overall this is primed to be in a position where it will likely hold more of its value when it first lands and people are trying to get their hands in it, people who miss out on the campaign, but just tracking how Skytear Horde has done over time, I think it's one that will hold its value a bit initially, but may not do so as much over time. If you're just trying to get your hands on the content, if your goal is to just get the basic content and just enjoy it, then I do recommend just picking it up at retail where you can get it very cheaply over there. But if you are looking for, well, all the content or deluxe fight bits and all that, that's where the campaign or the secondhand market is going to make sense. Next up, we have Trekking the World 2nd Edition and Bucket List Expansion. $155,000 raised, 2,900 backers, 13 days ago. Trekking the World 2nd Edition is bringing you, well, a revised edition of Trekking the World. If you played through the original Trekking the World from Underdog Games, it's basically going to have you wandering around a map and trying to cash in various cards to explore various locations and then collect various souvenirs in your suitcase, and this is basically going to have those same concepts. They have made changes both to the art, the graphic design, and also to the gameplay as well, but those changes are not really in the stronger focus of what you're doing, but rather in the minute details of how those things are executed. So if you've played the game before, you'll notice that your main core action of your turn is determined by a different deck of cards that you're running, or the briefcase is slightly different, or the monuments you're visiting and all those things are the expeditions, whatever it is you're doing, those are all going to be slightly different, but having the same general core concept that the original game had, in theory based off all the feedback from the various players. We have Trekking the World 2nd Edition for $40, which is 20% off MSRP, which might be worth it, we'll get back to that shortly, and we have the 2nd Edition plus Bucket List expansion for $50, which is 30% off MSRP. Now in general, if you follow this channel, you'll know that the 20% off MSRP or 30% off MSRP usually is not that compelling, because by the time you factor in shipping, you're basically paying more than you would pay when you factor in online retail, meaning general online retail is going to be 20 to 30% off MSRP anyway, so this is just giving you the regular price, but then shipping is going to make it more, except they don't have shipping. The shipping is actually free if you're in the US, and it's subsidized in various other places, so shipping is much more affordable. Fun fact, one of the first times I made a mistake on this channel in terms of, well, covering a campaign and then missing an important detail was one of the games from Underdog Games where I missed the fact that they had free shipping shipping because it was so rare to do that in a campaign at that point, or now as well. And that was an issue where again, when covering these campaigns, there's always some degree of opinion. Will it hold its value? Will it not? But then there's objective fact, and objective fact is much harder to get wrong because I'm talking to you about what these things are and how much they cost and all that stuff, and getting key details wrong is something I generally feel very, very badly about because it can hurt either yourself or the company depending on how I present information incorrectly. So yeah, it's something I actually missed one of the first times, which is why I specifically made sure to go ahead and look. And sure enough, they do have free shipping, which is, again, unusual, but it does mean that the 20 to 30% off is already basically what you're looking at in regular retail. So it means you're not necessarily getting a great deal, but you're getting roughly the same price this would cost if you were to get it at online retail anyway. The only question is sometimes Underdog Games has had deeper discounts on some of the games that didn't sell as well. I don't think that's as likely of Trekking the World because I think it's already an established title, so it's a little easier to predict around, but some of the new titles that didn't sell as well definitely saw price cuts, which can factor things in, but assuming we don't have to deal with that, you're basically talking about the secondhand market as opposed to retail, because retail, you may as well get it now because it's going to be roughly the same price point, although I guess you are paying money up in front, so there is that trade-off instead, but you're supporting the company. Up to you how you want to handle that. As far as the will holds value in the secondhand market, I'd say overall not as much, especially not over time. I think the pricing is not bad, don't get me wrong, but this is one that, again, the second market, they already have the first edition, which the first edition will probably even be cheaper now if you want to get your hands on that. But in general, Underdog's games are a little bit on the lighter side and haven't done as great on the secondhand market. So as far as should you back it, if you're comparing it to just retail options, I'd say go for it. But if you're comparing it to the secondhand market, this is one where you're likely still going to get a cheaper option to get your hands in it in the secondhand market. Moving on over here, we have Phantom Ink Arcana. $16,000 raised, 440 backers, 15 days to go. Phantom Ink Arcana is a standalone tarot expansion for the hit Sans party game Phantom Ink. The general idea of Phantom Ink is you're going to be asking your team questions. You have two teams and two clue givers, and you're asking them questions, and how they answer the questions, at any point you can kind of tell them to stop, which is when you can kind of cut off their answer if you think you know what they're writing. Because basically you're operating with a degree of open information. So if you think you know what the answer to a question is, having your team cut off that answer so you can go ahead and figure out, well, what was the actual thing that it's going for, it gives the opposing team less information. They actually have a great example of this over here, and this has a tarot card option as well, but they have a great example over here. You can kind of get a sense or feel for what it's like, but if we scroll down over here, they had a good option, so you can see it. Where was it? Over here. So you can click over here, you can get a sense of what the unfinished answers are in this, and you can go ahead and click here to see the answer if you want to get a sense or a feel as to how this plays out, or what that sequence is like of asking a question, but then having limited information, and then having your opposing teams where you don't even get to see the question as much, so that you can have that kind of, well, I guess, the sense of things, of trying to figure out what this game is like. As far as the pledge levels over here, we have $28 for the standard edition, we have $32 for the Kickstarter edition, and then we have $50 if you also want the original Phantom Ink in here as well. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Again, I think a little less likely on this one. While Phantom Ink overall has been well enough received, it's not one that's been super amazingly popular, which means overall, if you look at the secondhand market in this one, it's fine, it's not great. And so overall, I think this is likely to be another one that is less likely to hold its value if you are considering getting this one. Next up, we have BubbleNet. 22 backers, $9,000 raised, or $9,200 raised, of a $9,000 goal, and 15 days to go. This one actually just funded by Kathleen Dreyer, and this is a game of meditative, solitaire, BubbleNet. Well, basically, okay, let's take a step back. Whales, when they hunt fish, can do it two ways. They can simply go chomp and eat the fish, or they can go ahead and blow a bunch of bubbles from a grouping of whales that will concentrate and center the fish so that the whale can come along and go chomp on all the fish instead of singular fish here and there. It's just more efficient gathering before you go ahead and eat those fish. Kind of the way a Kickstarter campaign is a central point to gather a bunch of gamers all at once who will spend the money in a single point of time as opposed to individually at retail over a longer period of time. It's kind of dark when you think about it. Anyway, BubbleNet over here. As far as this game, this is a solo game that mimics that. You're going to have this little, let's go scroll down here. You have these little bubbles, you're going to center the fish, and you're going to be moving the whales around the board, trying to slowly create the bubbles and drive the fish towards the center. And you're going to be revealing, I believe you reveal a card every round, which is going to determine how the fish move. But the basic idea is you're trying to manage all these things to basically gather as much fish as possible throughout playing this solo game. That's basically the idea of BubbleNet over here. It's a solo game, which in theory you can play with other players, with you just have competing do doing your own little solo thing together, basically solo together, a multiplayer solitaire as it were. That's basically the game over here. That's basically BubbleNet over here. As far as the pledge levels for the game, pledge levels are going to coming in over here at $5 for the print and play, $40 for BubbleNet, and then $99 if you want Podmates, basically getting 50% off a third copy of the game if you get a grouping of 3. And then shipping is going to run, where shipping was somewhere down here, but I think shipping is going to run, was it $15? I think it was $15 to the US, but I have to scroll past. Here we go. $15 to basically everywhere, it looks like, to go ahead and get your hands on the game. Which is going to put the price point around $55. Which means to the should you back, should you not, will hold its value. I think that if you're interested in getting your hands on the game, well, it's only 272 backers, you're going to want to get your hands on the game basically here if you want to guarantee it at all. But as far as holding its value, coming in at $55 for a game of this type, of this box size and components and content and all that, I do think it's less likely to hold its value on the second market. And again, this is one of the small indie price point creator kind of situation where it's just always harder to compete as far as where that goes. But if you do want to lock in and guarantee a copy, 272 backers means it's not going to be a lot of copies of this in the wild. So basically, if you want to guarantee it, back it now, but it is one that I think is less likely to hold its value. Moving on, we have Incubo by Mojito Studios. $6,000 raised, out of a $4,000 goal, 102 backers, 15 days left to go. This is a cooperative, I believe it's a solo or cooperative game of deck building as you pass each other's cards to go through the adventure you're going on. I believe there's a sequence of 3 bosses you're going to be going through, or 3 nightmares. At the end of each of these nightmares, you deal with the actual consequences of the nightmare, the boss, the the homework that didn't get handed in or whatever it is, and you'll be building out your decks, but then passing cards back and forth. And the solo mode has its own slight variant to it because obviously, well, you can't share cards back and forth in a solo mode, not in a typical sense anyways. That's basically the game over here. As far as the pledge levels, you're going to have $60 for the Sweet Dreams plus pledge plus the postcard over here. We have $25 if you just want the game, call it a day. If you want the dice as well, it's going to be $40. The playmat's going to be $45. Sweet Dreams is $60 over here, which the plus postcard is going to be $60 as well over here. Anyways, that's what we have for the pledge levels over here. As far as should you back, should you not, will hold its value. Again, I think just less likely. I think this is a smaller box game with only 102 backers. There's just not that demand currently. So overall, this is one that does fall into the same category. If you want it, if you want to lock in a copy, this is the best time to guarantee your copy, but it's one that is less likely to hold its value if it's a game that turns out to not be for you. From there, we have Rise of the Wastelands. $31,000 raised, 355 backers, 15 days to go. Rise of the Wasteland is a 4X post-apocalyptic game in which players kind of feels like more like an RTS than a 4X, but I guess the difference between an RTS and a 4X are not that different, except RTS is technically real-time strategy, and this is not real-time strategy. It's just taking turns and actions one at a time, going around until players run out of influence. So I guess it's a 4X. It's a 4X game. That's what I said at the beginning before I second-guessed myself. Anyways, this is a 4X game of surviving in the wasteland over here, trying to build troops, build buildings, move out, conquer the area, basically all the stuff you do in a 4X game. But anyways, over here we have €59 for the Rise of the Wasteland Standard Edition. We have €89 for the Deluxe Edition, which is going to include the extra detailed plastic miniatures, and that's basically what we have before we get to the group pledges on the game. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. The game looks cool overall, don't get me wrong. Like, again, if you look at this, the overall game, it looks like it's fast-paced in the sense that you're taking one action after another until you have to, like, end it, so it's just a quick moving game, but we are going to fall into the same territory, which is at 355 backers on the game. Combined with the price point just means that I do think this is one that hasn't fully pulled in an audience. And again, that's true for a lot of the games we're covering today. There's very few larger hits. I think we have Skytear Horde that's doing really well. Past that, Trekking the National Parks is doing pretty well. But a lot of these games are falling into that more indie publisher space and not managing to fully find their audience. And as unfortunate as it is, that usually translates as well to the secondhand market. If you didn't find your audience fully on crowdfunding, you're usually going to have the same struggle getting rid of those copies in the secondhand market when it's even less appealing because it's not the magic and little special sauce that is crowdfunding. Moving on, and lastly, we have Jomsvikings by Dark Rabbit. €11,000 raised, 15 days left to go, 106 backers. You can probably see where this is going to be going, and it is indeed where it's going to be going. But this is going to be a tactical card game with deck building set in the world of spacefaring Vikings. The art looks very solid. I can't tell if it's AI or not. It's always hard to say. Nowadays, there's certain types of art that have that AI look, but I don't know enough about the artifacts that are present in the art to know for myself. This one definitely looks like it's in that. Looks like it could be in that campaign, but I don't know. But I do like the art, but that is what it is. But it's going to be a spacefaring venture game where you're going to be building a deck and then dealing with the various enemies, both through drawing cards blindly, but also using cards from your hand to ensure that you guarantee the results you want, while continuously building out your deck and improving yourself as you go through it in this game. And I believe there's solo and cooperative play as well. As far as the pledge levels, we're going to have €40 for the Mercenary Pledge and €80, which is going to be the same game, just with miniatures instead of standees for all the various characters, which is a chunk of a premium extra price point on top of the game, but if you want those cool miniatures, you're going to be paying that price point. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. Again, same kind of conversation. The €40 price point is actually not bad. Again, you have to factor in shipping a go. That's the tricky part, because if you're in the USA, your €40 price point just jumped to €60. A full third of your game jumped up, depending on where you are. On the other hand, if you're in Poland, that's a very, very affordable game. So I think that I do wonder what the breakdown on backers is on this one, as far as where they're from, because it makes drastically more sense to back this depending on where you are, depending on which region and which shipping price point you're looking at. But if you are talking about this as a USA backer, as most of my audience is, not all of you, I appreciate all of you, but not, I think the majority, I think it's like 50%, or maybe just, I have to double check my stats. I think around 50% of my audience is US based. But either way, if you're looking at this, I mean, again, I do think this one that's less likely to hold its value, especially when you factor in that, you know, if you, even if the basic version of the game is going to run you €60, and then the advanced version of the game, or the miniature version of the game, is going to run you €100, those are just hefty price points to pay, and I don't think there's a ton of people. But that said, if you want to guarantee it, same problem. With only 106 backers, guaranteeing it, this is basically where you're going to have to back it. And they said themselves they don't really have plans for retail. I believe this is their second campaign. Their last one was Stellar something, I want to say. I can't remember exactly offhand. But anyways, that's going to be Jomsvikings by Dark Rabbit over here. And that's basically it, which brings us to Pick of the Week. Pick of the Week, as usual, I picked two campaigns over here. One that is my personal interest pick of the week, and one that I think is the most likely to hold its value. For my personal interest pick of the week, I'm going to go with Skytear Horde campaigns. I really enjoy this in this game, and the idea of adding not just more variety of content, but that potential for a 4-game campaign mode. Really enjoy that. Well, theoretically enjoy that. I haven't actually played it, but very much looking forward to it. Would love to see more from this campaign in general, so overall this can be my personal interest pick of the week. And as far as holding its value, I think Skytear Horde campaigns would likely be the closest, but because it's my personal interest pick of the week, I'm going to instead give that to Trekking the World over here, 2nd edition. And this one is tricky because I don't think it's going to hold its value in the secondary market, but I do think it's at least giving you a compelling price point to buy it. If you're someone who just wants to buy the games new, I think they're giving you a compelling price point because of that free shipping or subsidized shipping, depending where you are. So I'm going to give this one my value pick of the week, although with the clear distinction that I don't think it's going to hold the value on the second-hand market. But I do think it is a good game, good price point to get the game if you plan on getting it at retail anyway. And that's basically what I have over here, which brings us to the upcoming campaigns. I'm going to normally take a look at a few upcoming campaigns, although because my video is late this week, it was supposed to go up Monday, these upcoming campaigns are actually live, so I'll get to see a quick sneak peek at campaigns I'll be covering next Monday. We have Iliad and Icar from Bitewing Games, and Marina Knizia over here, with 1,000 backers already, $100,000 raised, or 87,000, but close enough. We have Blood from Lewis Magnet Studios with €234,000 raised, 2,000 backers, and 16 days left to go, coming from Lewis Magnet Studios. And again, I will have a review and gameplay for you on this one. Very interesting game. I have a lot of good things and some critical things to say about this one, but both looks beautiful, and it's, well, we'll talk more. We'll talk more about it. And then lastly, we have Odalin, which smashed $1 million over here, 3,600 backers, 15 days left to go. Odalin's going to be a kind of a Diablo style brought to your table. Very excited to dive into this one. I should have content for you soon, definitely before the campaign's over, but I'm hoping, we'll see, maybe if we're lucky Saturday, I'd say probably more likely on Tuesday, but we'll see. But that's basically what we have over here. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for bearing with me as I play catch up on a few videos that are a little bit too late. For those of you who've been paying attention, I've been going deep into the vault on all my old videos, and now I need to start getting caught up. It turns out moving and dealing with all the camera stuff and everything, dealing with all the usual stuff plus moving really takes a bunch of videos out of the schedule that I was looking forward to. So you've been able to watch some really old videos, including some that have been filmed almost 2 years ago, although I do have older videos than that. Just, we'll see. I save them for rainy days. And this past month has been pouring. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one. What do you call C-3PO in an invisibility cloak? Hard to C-3PO.